All right, I see us in the Facebook group now. Happy Thursday, happy Pro Power Hour, happy almost weekend. Like I say every week, we're almost there. My name's Chris Weldon. I'm one of the community managers with Housecall Pro, and this is our Pro Power Hour series. This is a new thing we've been doing. We're on session number 12. I just checked today, and you can kind of think of this as like a crash course on various features. We take one, maybe a few different features every week. We kind of break them down for you. We talk about why they're beneficial, why you might want to use them. And then Phil does an excellent job, like I said, going through the deck and then giving us kind of a tour, like a little onboarding tour. So every week you can expect me here. You can expect most of the time Phil or another onboarding specialist. Phil's kind of been our resident for a while, so you might recognize faces. If you're new to Housecall Pro, or maybe you've been around for a long time, you might recognize some of us. So I encourage you to be here every week. It's at 3 Pacific, 6 Eastern. You can stream it on Zoom and watch it live with us. You can also watch it live with us on Facebook. And then we have a help article that we'll drop. It has all of our past recordings, so you can go back and watch all of our sessions. And we'll just keep building and building on this. I know we're eager to talk to Phil. Lauren and I, who kind of spearhead this, we're eager to talk to Phil. We're going to potentially set up some like employee onboarding sessions, so that your field techs or any new hires you get can kind of watch something we'll put together that'll train them in and out, kind of everything they need to know day to day. So hopefully more on that soon, but I'm excited for today. We're going to talk about a few different kind of compliance features, if you will. CYA, if you don't know what that is, just for you and your business, for you and your techs. So we'll be talking about checklists, signatures, and terms and conditions. And I know for both signatures and checklists, there's some updates coming soon too. So look out in the next couple of months, the next few months. We'll be expanding on those, but we'll talk about the current state today. Phil, I'll let you, like I always do, kind of introduce yourself real quick, and then we can get into it.
Sure. Hello, everybody again. I am Phil, one of the onboarding specialists. If you've come in for a support call or are new to the product, you've probably worked with myself or one of my teammates. So we're very excited to show you all a little bit about CYA. Also, we call it accountability over here. Love talking about this, making sure you and your businesses are covered in every particular way. So as Chris kind of said, talking about signatures, checklists, and just making sure everybody's on the same page and we can hold everybody accountable for their actions. So as usual, we will start with the slide deck, and then I will go ahead and show you a little bit on the web portal. And since today we're kind of going over signatures and things that field techs are probably going to be dealing with, I've got a little bit here on the mobile app to show you as well. So let's go ahead and dive into it. All right. So starting us off, we're going to talk a little bit about those checklists. So every job and every estimate can have a checklist added to it. And you can have as many checklists as you want added to that particular job or that particular estimate. And anytime that you create a checklist, you'll see when we demo, you have basically two little options that you can add to a checklist, which is you can have it added to all future jobs. So that way, if you have a standardized checklist that you want applied to all jobs, you can certainly have that set up. And there's also one that is pretty much everybody's favorite, is a switch, where it basically sets it up so that your field technician can actually not finish their job or their estimate until they complete their checklist. When they try to hit finish and that little option is turned on, they get this little error message, and we'll see that together where it says finish your checklist before finishing your job. And whenever I'm training people new in the system and showing them checklists, I always say is like, that is the best place to start with accountability with your team. So first example I always use is, did you clean up before you were finished with your work? If they go ahead and check that off and you get a complaint from the customer, now you have something you can look back to. So checklists are great for accountability. That's one thing. But also, as you can kind of see here with the little image and the little animation, which we will again see together when we build it out, is the checklist can be used many different ways. You can have the checklist have three different options. One of them is an actual checkbox. So again, back to that example, did you clean up after you finish the work? Check. Did you ask for a review? Check. There is another option for actually having to type something out. So I know a lot of people in the plumbing industry, when you shut the water off before you leave, you want to make sure you know what the water pressure is before you leave the building. So, they put in whatever 270 PSI or whatever the case may be. And then the third option is what I always point people to is that you can essentially create inspection sheets within your checklist. Checklists, the third option gives you a pass, fail, or flag option. So again, I tell everybody it's a great place to create those inspection sheets. And as your technician, your estimator is out there, they can go ahead and fill out that inspection sheet using the checklists. So this slide kind of in the checklist features, again, just kind of reiterating the different styles of the checklist that I talked about. Talked a little bit about automatically adding it to new jobs. So something to note that when a new reoccurring job is created, the checklist setting that is on will be added to all of those reoccurrences. So similar to all jobs, it will be added to all of those reoccurring jobs. Checklists with the setting on will also be added to jobs converted from approved estimates. So any completed checklists on an estimate will carry over to the job, so that way we can go ahead and take a look at those. You can also add a checklist to an invoice, open any job view on the details page, select the invoice option located at the top of your job details page to send the invoice, and find the attachment section to send the checklist with the invoice. So I get that question a lot when talking about checklists is, can we have our customers see the checklist? Yes, you can. We will see that together when we demo, but when we go to send off the invoice, you do have the option to add the checklist as an attachment. And one other thing to put in here is, if you all haven't seen or dove too deeply into the Help Center, I always point every pro I've ever talked to our Help Center. It's a great resource for you. And so when it comes to checklists, there's some great materials in there. There is some templates for HVAC industries, plumbing, as well as electrical. So a couple of improvements that will be coming out with checklists. Our product is continuously trying to find ways to improve, and checklists have been around for a while and are due for a little bit of a revamp. So we are going to be soon able to add notes to each checklist item. We're going to be able to add photos to checklists, making certain items required rather than the entire checklist, because as I mentioned before, we can make the entire checklist be required to be filled out before a job is completed. So now we're going to hopefully make it so that certain items will be required rather than the whole checklist. Adding sections, so we can add more sections to the checklist, downloading and printing the checklist by itself instead of having to do the entire invoice, and also creating and using single and multi-select fields. So a lot to come. Please stay tuned. Now, the next thing for accountability, and another question that I commonly get from a lot of people that are starting with the product, is where do I go to collect signatures? And at this time, the only place to do this is within the mobile app. And so I always tell all of my pros is that if signatures are important to you, make sure your field technicians know where to find these particular signatures. And in the mobile app, there's a couple of different places. For an estimate, you'll go open up the estimate, and in the upper left-hand corner, there is an icon that says approve with a little pencil. They can just click on that, turn their phone or tablet around, and the customer can go ahead and sign off on the estimate right then and there. Now for the jobs, you can, it's in the same section, upper left-hand corner, approve button. When you click on that, it's going to actually give you two options. It's going to say, do you want to collect signature before the work starts or after the job is completed? And some people even go for both, but you can go ahead and collect a signature at each particular time. And a new feature that we did just release is that you can create some custom signature fields. We'll work to get, when we demo it, I'll go ahead and show you where we can go ahead and start setting those up. Here's just a little page. I know that we're going to release the slide deck to you all. So if you want to go ahead and read a little bit further more information in here, But basically, we're going to go through all of this together on the demo, just really showing you how to go ahead and set up those custom signatures. Terms and conditions. This is something I go over with everybody on our first intro call. So when it comes to the T's and C's, it's right there in the company profile, all the way at the bottom. I know that when you click on the box to go ahead and put it on, it is a little small, but I promise you it does expand to add as much information as you need. And the way that's going to look when you send it off to your customers is whenever you send a document to somebody, there is going to be a link that they can go ahead and click on to view your terms and conditions. So I always tell everybody that's where you want to put in your legal lingo to cover yourselves in the company. And that's kind of the point of our new custom signatures, so that we can kind of set up, at least for now, a place where you can say you collected the signature upon reading the terms and conditions. I do see one of the questions that we've gotten from you guys through the social media is, how can we get the signature on an email? At this time, that is not available. So one of the things I always tell my pros, if that is important to you, is within your terms and conditions, you leave a little section that says, by clicking approve, you are essentially agreeing to our terms and conditions without a signature. So you might want to discuss somebody that knows legalese a little bit better to word that a little bit more properly, but that is the best that I can give you in terms of what I've experienced in the past. So enough talking, let's get into it. And let's go ahead and look at the jobs. So first thing we'll talk about, we'll go back to our checklists here. And for those checklists, what we're going to want to do is, if you haven't seen them before, is we're going to go up to our apps, and there is the section for checklists. Now, I have plenty of checklists here, but we'll just build a new one out from scratch. So we'll go to checklist, and at the top, we'll do our Pro Power Hour checklist. Now, as I said, one of the options is a checkbox. So did you clean up after? So that'll be our first option. And within the little animation on the slide you saw, we can add additional ones. We can even have multiple different options. So as I said, text box. And lastly, we'll do a little pass flag fail here. We'll call this our inspection test. All right, so now we have our little checklist built out here. We're going to go on up to next. And here's the two options that I discussed. So we can have it automatically added to new jobs. A question that I've commonly gotten is say you're a business and you have multiple different divisions within your company. You have an electrical division, you have a plumbing division, and you have an HVAC division. Common question I get is, can I have just solely my HVAC checklists be applied to HVAC jobs? All of my electrical checklists be applied to strictly electrical jobs? Unfortunately, not at this time. This is really the only feature we have, is this to be applied to all. So I always tell these pros that if you have more of a well-rounded checklist, that's going to be your better bet. Otherwise, for those particular divisions, you're going to have to upload those checklists manually on a case-by-case basis. Then the one at the top is the one that I was talking about, and we're going to leave it on for this, which is basically limiting your field technicians from being able to finish a job until they complete their checklist. So now we've gone ahead, we've saved our checklist. It's there in the system. Now let's go ahead and start a job and apply it. So here's our job. Let's just make this a little easier. We'll use our favorite customer, Mez. And let's put it on the schedule for today, and we'll dispatch it to me. And down below, before we even save the job, there's the option right there for the checklists. So we're going to go ahead and add the one that we just created. Let's even go ahead and add, I get people all the time asking about pictures, which we'll talk about in a minute. So we'll add 2 checklists there. And as I mentioned earlier, you can add as many checklists to a job or an estimate as you need to. All right, so now we have our job in here. Really, everybody's workflow is a little bit different, but within our system, it's pretty much the same. So I'll kind of bypass a lot of the early stuff before we get to the when it comes to like completing the job. But let's go ahead and say, just to show you the example of if a technician is trying to sidestep everything and just wants to finish the job. So when they go ahead and hit finish, boom, there's that error message that says, go ahead and make sure your checklist is completed before you finish your job. So now it actually forces them to have to come on down here and go through their checklist. Did we clean up? Yes, we did. Power back on? Yes. And we finished our inspection. Since we have two, we'll go have to do it again. All right. Now that our checklists are completed, we can now go ahead and hit finish on the job. And now the job is completed. So that is how it would look within the web portal. Now let's take a look at how it's going to look through the mobile app. So let me go ahead and create another job here. And that's me. And let's go ahead and throw a checklist on here. All right, so give me 1 second while I go ahead and pull up our mobile app. Okay, so here's my mobile app. I'm going to go ahead and open up the job right here. As you can see, kind of right there, front and center, it says checklists incomplete. We are going to go ahead and just for an example here, me as a technician, I'm going to go ahead and hit finish, and there's the error message that they would get. So now they're forced to go into their checklist, go ahead and complete it. There we go. We see the check. So there we can go ahead and now finish the job. So that's really it on the checklists. I did see a couple of things pop up in the chat. Chris, any other questions that I might be missing out on before I scoot into signatures?
I'm looking at Facebook right now. I don't see any questions. Everything right now is related to the beta waitlist for checklists. I did post that in both chats if anybody's interested. I think it is on a wait list right now, but I will check with the project manager and find out if we're adding more people.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so then let's talk a little bit about signatures. So I guess we can go ahead and let's start with an estimate. So I'm going to go ahead and build an estimate and we'll convert it to a job. That way we can start seeing a lot of the signatures. And actually, before I do that, let me go ahead and show you all when we go up to our account settings and we can go to jobs. That's where the signatures is at. So when we go into here, you can create up to 3 custom signatures that can be added. So myself, I moved out to California and I learned about the 3-day, what is it, 3-day right to waive or something like that. Yeah. So let's say 3-day. There we go. All right. So we've gone ahead and added one of the signatures right there. And now we can go and start with an estimate. Okay, let's hit the clock and we'll send it to me. All right, so now we have our estimate. As I mentioned earlier in the presentation, is that we cannot collect signatures through the web portal. So we are going to have to put this on the onus of the technicians. So we are going to scoot back into the mobile app. All right, there we go. So here is my estimate. As I mentioned, for the signatures in the upper left-hand corner, everyone can see under the word schedule, there is that little approve button with the pencil. So when you click on it, it gives you the option, as you see right there, it says approve an estimate. Tap that. And again, as I mentioned, technician estimator can turn their phone or tablet around, go ahead and collect that signature. And now we can see that it is listed as approved. Now, people always ask, where does that signature live? In the web portal, you can certainly pull up the estimate and you can see the signature. I'll go ahead and flip that around after we go through all the steps within the mobile app. But just another thing to point out is that if we were to go ahead and send this estimate off to the customer, on their estimate, they're going to see their signature. So that way there's proof on the estimate that they did sign off on this particular project. All right, so let's go ahead and we'll say that this is finished. And let's hit copy to job. All right, so now we have our job. And as I mentioned, again, in the upper left-hand corner, there is the approve button. When you click on it, it gives us all of the options. So before work starts, after work is completed, and for us out here in California, that 3-day right to waive. So we'll collect the first signature before we start. Collect that 3-day. And once we finish the job, we can say after the work is completed. So now we got all of our signatures. Again, we'll see this on the back end, but if we were to send off the invoice, there's the signatures right there. So again, we've covered all our bases. We're covered. Basically, customer signed off on everything. So we are good to go. Now, how is this going to look on the back end? It's going to look like this. So here is our estimate. If I go ahead and refresh my page and I scroll down, there it is. There's the approvals and we can see the signature right there. And if we go over to that copy job, let's see, that's this number. Scroll down, and there we go. We got our 3 signatures. Work started, 3-day right to cancel, and work is finished. So those are the different places for those signatures and where we will see them within the mobile app, see them on the invoice and the estimate, and see them on the back end on both the job and the estimate. Now, when it comes to terms and conditions, which was the last thing that we kind of talked about here. So again, if we go to our company profile, and first thing as I said, I do with everybody when I first meet you, is we talk about our terms and conditions, which are at the bottom here. And so here is the edit button. As I mentioned, this field is pretty small, but it will expand to fit as much information as you need. All right, so we'll save it. And I've got an example of one right here. Okay, so here is an email that is received when we go ahead and send off or schedule an estimate. And as we can see at the bottom, here are the terms and conditions. So any email that they receive will have this terms and conditions at the bottom. They can click on it to go ahead, open it up, and review all of your terms and conditions. So yeah, that's really it for terms and conditions. One thing I did forget to mention was adding checklists to invoices. So we'll just quickly go back to that. Let's go back to our job here. And apply our checklist. Quickly finish it out. So when we go ahead to shoot off the invoice, you do have the option here for attachments. And when you click on it, there's the option right there for checklists. So we can go ahead and say, yep, let's go ahead and add that checklist to the invoice. And let's see, is this one should send to me. So let's go ahead and send it. All right, let's go ahead and take a look. There's our invoice. View the invoice, and the checklist comes as a attachment. So there's an example of how it will look, pretty similar to how the invoice is going to look with all of your information in the upper left-hand corner, along with the job information in the upper right, and all of the checklist underneath it. So just wanted to make sure we covered that as well, so everybody could see that, and it's on the recording. Now let's go ahead and start answering a couple of questions. So Chris, any before I start going through this list?
Yeah, we had one question come up from Deborah. She asked, can we change the order of the checklists after they are added? I don't know the answer. I want to say it's no.
Yeah, the answer is unfortunately no. You could always, if you wanted to, you could go back and remove a checklist from a job, and if that really matters to you, you could then add them in the order that you want. But once they are added, there's really no way to toggle moving them around at this time. All right, so here's a couple of questions that we received from you all before the meeting. So is there a good way to automatically add checklists to a job? So the answer is yes. I did demo this for you all. Again, you can only add it to all future jobs. And we can't specialize it at this time to be like specifically for an install job, specifically for a repair job. Those will have to be added manually on a case-by-case basis. I think that kind of also answers Matt's question here. Can I automatically apply a checklist to a certain type of job? The answer at this time is no. We are working on that. Again, it's only for all new jobs. I'm looking at, this is from Daniel, going from basic to essential, is checklist included or cost extra? So the checklists are available for the essentials plans and up at no additional cost. Anyone an idea of how, from Steven, how to print checklist used to work, but now prints prints the appointments on the job screen. So kind of yes and no. As we saw, really the only way to do this is once we attach it to an invoice. You technically could print the invoice with the checklist. You could also send it to yourself. So then that way you have the PDF and then you can print it out. So there's quite a few workarounds to be able to do this, but there really isn't a easy way to just simply go, I want this checklist and I want to print it out. You have to do it through the way that I showed you by simply adding it to an invoice or an estimate and then printing it or sending it to yourself that way. From Neil, is there a way to export import checklists from spreadsheets to make them easier to build and edit? As far as I know, and I'm fairly confident in this answer, is that the answer is no. All of our checklists are pretty much built within our system, and they aren't really built and imported or exported in any way. Mohammed here says, regarding signatures from customers, is anything in the works to have them print, type their name along with getting a signature? That is some feedback that we can certainly add and bring to the developers and our product managers, but at this time, it's just the signatures. Alistair, do signatures can only be made on a technician's phone? As I said, yes, at this time, that is the only way we can collect those signatures. And actually, now that I've just kind of thought about it, I forgot that to mention is when it comes to signatures, if you actually want to have like a client actually sign off on something and also something for the for being able to print their name, one workaround I have seen people do is within each particular job and for each job, each estimate, and you could also do this in your for your global settings, is that you can go and add a message. So let's, where is it? I think maybe because I already sent this off, let me get another example. Oh, there we go. So the workaround that I have found for this that some people have done is that you could potentially put in like a line on your invoice message or your estimate message. So right here, print name. And oop, oop. So when we actually, if we were to print off the invoice, as you can see right here now in the invoice message, there is a place for a customer to print their name and collect a hard signature. Again, this is just a workaround if this is something that you want to or need to have happen, and you'll actually have a hard copy. So if you do need to have that added to the system, to continue with the workaround, what I've heard and I've coached people on is that if you collect the hard copy with both of those signatures like that, you can go ahead and either scan it, take a picture of it, and add it as an attachment to the job or the estimate. And so that way, it kind of satisfies what you were saying as getting customers to print at their name at this time, as well as also collecting a hard signature. Is there a way to require pictures and a signature before a job starts? So I get this question quite a bit as well. Unfortunately, no. That is why I always tell everybody if taking pictures is important to you, make it part of your checklist and go ahead and make sure that they cannot finish the job until they complete their checklist. So that way, if they go ahead and sign off on it that says, yeah, I took the pictures, but they didn't, now you guys can have that discussion. Oh, another Phil. Here we go. Philip over here says, is there any program that will integrate with HCP for digital signatures? Zapier is one of them that allows people to collect signatures. The one that I've mostly pointed my clients to is DocuSign. I'm just more familiar with using DocuSign, but you can use DocuSign to collect additional signatures on specific contracts, specific agreements, and you can simply add those when they are signed as attachments to your job or to your estimate. Where is the option for customer signature on estimates? So that we already kind of covered. I showed you within the mobile app in the upper left-hand corner. That's where the approve button is. So that answers that question for Bobby. Trisha, how can we require signature for online estimate approvals? As I mentioned earlier, at this time, we cannot be able to collect signatures online or through the web portal. So what you're going to want to do is that little workaround, as I mentioned, within your terms and conditions, simply say that by approving an estimate that's as good as a signature, Obviously, talk to your lawyers about what is the best way to word that within your terms and conditions. How many signatures can be collected on a job with customer job signatures? So at this time, it's really, again, just the ones that I showed you. So if there is two different people that are in the same unit, you're going to only be able to collect signatures from at least one of them. Or if you want to collect it from both of them, they can sign off on the different ones. Maybe what you can do is create a specific signature field for additional people within the unit, something like that. But at this time, really, it's one signature for each of those options. And a question from Rick, is there a way to have separate terms and conditions for maintenance contracts and other job types? So with this, for the terms and conditions, if you're going to have several different contracts or job types, again, if they have to specifically sign off on a specific contract or a specific job, you'll probably want to use DocuSign or something like that. That way you can actually have like your little packet of your entire agreement or your contract, whatever it's going to be, and collect signature directly on that. But what I've really coached people to do is that within your terms and conditions, within your terms and conditions, what you can do, again, this expands with us to fill as much information as you need. But what you could do is say, like, for in your conditions, contract, agreements, one, and then put in all of the terms and conditions for that particular contract, and then you can do contract two. Or that's how I would essentially separate it, so that way it's clear when they look at the terms and conditions that regardless of what project they are signing up for, they are essentially approving them all. So they are releasing you to go ahead and do and get started on whatever you need to. This, again, is probably the best way you can do it within our system, unless you kind of want to go that DocuSign route. And let's see. So yeah, that's really it in terms of the questions. Just another thing to kind of mention about the signatures is, again, it's really valuable so that you can go ahead and collect these signatures through your estimates and your jobs along with your custom fields that you set up for. So that way, again, your technicians out in the field can get these signatures remotely, and that way you'll be able to see it on the back end. And as we said, CYA, cover your accountability. So that's pretty much everything I have. Chris, any other questions?
I have been in both chats. Don't see any other questions. But pros, if you do see this on Facebook, the Facebook thread remains open. So feel free, if you catch the recording, drop your questions there. And if you are watching this as a recording, maybe in the help center or something like that, we do have the help articles linked. Of course, head to the blue chat bubble, they'll help you out. Or you can join our Facebook group. You can DM myself, Lauren, we're all here to help you. Um, Otherwise, I think that's going to be it. Definitely looking for your suggestions too. So if you have any topics, any features, anything you want to learn more about, get that over to me, to Lauren. If you're working with Phil or someone on the onboarding team, let them know. We'd love to get your help in deciding the upcoming topics for the next few weeks. But otherwise, Phil, we'll see you in a couple weeks. I think Parker's joining us next. And we'll catch everyone next Thursday.
Take care.
Cool. Thanks, Phil. Have a good weekend,
Yep.
guys.
Bye.